Can you hear me now? Is this better?
Yep.
Okay, so I was just about to start drawing a mind map. What I'm doing here is basically showing you how I use a mind map during my tutorial sessions. But let's get some feedback from all of you. How many of you have heard of mind mapping before? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, great. So you're all very familiar with it. How many of you actually actively use mind mapping? Again, can I see? Okay, at least there's a couple out there. So some of you have heard of it, and some of you are active users. But mostly, you're probably here to see a bit more about how we can actively use mind mapping. So can I also find out from you, why are you interested in mind mapping? Or what do you think it can, in what ways do you think it will be useful for you? Okay, so it helps you to organize your thoughts. Anything else? Anybody else want to share?
Generate ideas.
Generate ideas. Anything else? Recap, memory. Okay, so for recall. Anything else? Okay, I think you've got some of the key ideas there. So now I know that your level of experience with mind mapping, we can maybe concentrate a bit more on the applications in technology. Do we have it on the screen? Yes. Okay. Right, so I'll just show you here. Let me give you an overview of what I'll be talking about today. Here I've got a mind map which I've drawn using iMindMap software, and I've converted it to a PDF file. So you can see today I'll basically be talking about why mind mapping. And I can't see on my own screen, so let me come around to the front. I'll be talking about why mind mapping and some of these things you've already been through, how to do a mind map, the kind of applications in teaching, both in discussion groups like I've done here, how I use them in lectures, as well as using computer mind mapping, the kinds of advantages and disadvantages that I've encountered. So we've already been through some of the reasons why mind mapping, as you said, to organize your thoughts. I like it because it gives you an overview of the whole topic at once on a single page. So you can really see how the different parts of that topic are structured. I like drawing mind maps to take notes because it's active thinking. You don't just passively absorb, copy down everything the lecturer is saying, but you have to think, how can I organize this in a hierarchical structure when you're drawing the mind map? It stimulates whole brain thinking. Left brain because it's very structured, right brain because it's also a creative exercise, drawing those organic looking lines using lots of colors. And yes, as one of you said, it stimulates recall because it's a very visual image. You're actively doing it, you're using colors, using images, and also it's fun. I love doing it because it's just a lot more fun to do than just writing linear notes. And before I move on to the rest of my presentation, I'm going to switch to a different way in which I'm going to present a mind map using a computer. And now I've switched to PowerPoint. And again, using the iMindMap software, you can see here I've created an interactive presentation going through some of the same things. We've already been through these ideas I mentioned briefly just now. Possibly including a few more points. And how to mind map. You start with a central image, preferably a picture. I'm not good at drawing, so I usually use a keyword. You have branches in a radial fashion. And you start with thick lines, moving to thinner lines to show that hierarchy of ideas. You want to use colors, preferably 3 or more. And plenty of images, symbols, or just things that are not words, again, to stimulate the other parts of your brain, and also because an image can help to, encompass a lot of different words and thoughts with it, so that picture for you can symbolize a whole bunch of ideas. Okay, so let's just move on. The kinds of applications. in discussions, it's like live mind mapping, like what I did here on the whiteboard. I also use it to structure discussions because I knew that I wanted to ask you about two separate issues. One was your experience in mind mapping, the other was your interest in mind mapping. So in a tutorial, I know that there are certain topics I want to cover. I can start out with that skeleton of the mind map on the board and make sure that we go through all of that during the tutorial session. It also provides a documentation of what we've discussed during the tutorial. Lots of ideas may be thrown up, so this is one way to jot them down. And the best part is the participation of all your students or people in the discussion. You can integrate everyone's ideas onto that single mind map. You can draw relationships between different ideas, and I love it because I can show how two different students talking about maybe two different parts of the mind map, the concept or idea is actually linked to each other. So it's a very good way to, again, generate critical thinking and link up all the different aspects of a particular topic. I've also used mind mapping in lectures, and later what I will do is to show you an example of one of my lecture PowerPoint presentations and how I've integrated mind maps with other types of information in a PowerPoint presentation. So mind maps, of course, are a very visual way to present your information in a lecture. I don't know if any of you have seen a book called Beyond Bullet Points. It's saying that bullet points actually really deaden the brain. You know, it doesn't stimulate your brain to learn the information, and it can be pretty dry. So mind maps are more visual, more colorful. They also provide that structure in a graphic format that helps students to understand how all the different ideas are connected to the main topic. It provides an overview. And as you can see here, if you have an interactive presentation, you can also animate your mind map, which sort of focuses people's attention on what you're talking about on that particular part of the mind map, that section of the superstructure. Okay. And also I've used mind maps to prepare handouts, which I'll talk a little bit about more later. So for computer mind mapping, what kind of advantages do we have? Speed. If you look at, I'll show you examples from iMindMap, but the mind mapping tool provided by CIT is this one called MindDomo. And if I start a new map in MindDomo, you'll see just how fast it can be to create a mind map on the computer if I'm taking notes very quickly. So let's see, I might start mind mapping, and I can do sorry, if I want to go back, I can go that and so you can see, you can type up notes quite quickly this way as well. So that's one of the advantages. You can quickly produce a mind map that looks nice. You can insert images, such as I've done here. I've put a little image of Tony Buzan's book on mind mapping. You can put in links, and you can put in notes. Now, in my PowerPoint, doesn't include those links and notes, but you can see a little icon there. So what I'm doing now is I'm opening up the original application, which is the iMindMap software. And just give us a while to load it up. In iMindMap software, you can actually click on those little icons, and it will take you to the link you've put in or further notes you've added. Sometimes, you know, you want to add a whole chunk of information, or you want to cut and paste something, and it's too much information to fit in this graphical format. So the links and notes can be very useful. I think it's a bit slow right now. Okay, it's starting up. I've got it here, sort of. got it. Okay, thanks for waiting. Let's just open up the file. We'll open up that same file again. Right. So if you see it here, I'll just open up. If I click on this little icon for links, the link, you can see it's taken me to my web browser, and it's opened up the link straight away. Okay. If you're interested in finding out more about mind mapping, tons of videos on YouTube. Let's click on the other icon for notes. And you can see I've keyed in a whole bunch of stuff here, and it's even in formatted text. Okay, so that's what you can do with computer mind mapping. Right. So back to my PowerPoint presentation. As I'm showing you now, you can also, for iMindMap software, you can export your mind map into PowerPoint in an interactive format like this, which is great for preparing lectures. You can also make handouts. I've done in the past drawn mind maps, and it's really terrible because if you make a mistake, how am I going to correct it? It looks really ugly. I'm bad at drawing. So with computer software, I can actually prepare a decent-looking handout for my students, and I can either convert it to a PDF, which is what I started with. If you remember, the first mind map I showed you was a PDF file. You can easily circulate the PDF, or you can share the mind maps online as well. And Minddomo, the software provided by NUS, you can do that. And let me show you here. These are examples of mind maps which created and shared with my students. And they're fairly complex mind maps. Okay, it's loading up. And what happens here is you can just send them the URL of the mind map page. So you can see here is a mind map about the Singapore River. I'm from the history department, so you can see, yeah. And I just send them the link, and they can view this. This is actually the sort of my notes to an assignment we set. And these are all the points they could have included in the essay. And that's very helpful. I can just circulate this in an email. Now, the problem, let's see, will we get to disadvantages? Yes, the disadvantages of mind maps. One is the limitations of the software. As you can see, I've used two different kinds of mind mapping softwares here. Minddomo, the one provided by CIT, is great because you can share the mind maps online. You can collaborate with other people to draw a mind map online. However, the problem with Minddomo is it doesn't export to PowerPoint. It exports to PDF. I tried to do that, and instead of getting a nice PDF or like what we saw just now, the mind map came out about this big. So I still haven't figured out whether I can get a nice PDF from Minddomo. And as you can see, it looks like a very, very different kind of mind map from the ones I've been showing you before. It doesn't have the organic look. The branches that go from thick to thin, it doesn't have the colors, and it pretty much draws it like a flow chart. In iMindMap, I can draw the lines. It's like drawing freehand. So it can really simulate a hand-drawn mind map in that way. So there are pros and cons to each of the software packages. iMindMap, you can see here, let's say I want to, if you see I want to add another branch, I can do this, and and then I can add in more branches this way. You can see I can draw them whichever way I want. But the advantages of iMindMap, you can see I've exported it to PowerPoint. I can get an interactive presentation, but there's no online sharing. So I find I have to use a combination of different softwares to do computer mind mapping effectively. And that's the spacing. When you get a big mind map, the words start to look very small on the presentation. I don't know if they look very small to you here. And you can see in this one, you can't see everything on a page. It's too huge. So when you start drawing a big mind map, that's when you start to run into problems. The computers, how do you space it on the screen? And printing becomes even more of a hassle. If you try and print out any of these, it's going to print it on multiple A4 pages for you, and then you can try and stick them together, and And basically it's hell, so I don't print out. And for these reasons, I still do most of my mind maps on paper. Okay, that's it for the main body of my presentation. But what I'm going to do for you now is to give you an example of a real-life lecture that I've done. And let me try and shut this down now. Okay. Right. And you can see from here how I've used mind maps as part of a standard lecture. I've combined both the usual kind of PowerPoint slides with a mind map. So I start out like this. I talk about Straits Chinese. And because I don't want the words to be too small, I just put the main branch here. This is the general overview of the whole topic, and just the keywords so that the mind map doesn't get too complicated. And I've circled by hand, the first section, which means I'm going to go into that now. And I like that kind of hand-drawn look. It gives a different feel to it. It brings your attention to that. So again, I have another mind map here, just the basic topics. And again, I use various techniques to focus on different parts of the mind map. And actually, the whole lecture can be put into one single mind map. But again, in order not to get it too big, I separate out into different sections and small individual mind maps. So you can see this way, by circling out the sections that I'm doing, you can also get an idea of where in the structure we are and follow the overall organization of the topic. Okay, so I think that gives you a good idea of how I've been using mind maps in an actual lecture. And perhaps what we can do now, since we still have a bit of time, is to perhaps take some questions from you about mind mapping. Pictures. Yes. Okay, let me go back to that lecture. And there are actually some mind maps where I've included picture, like this one. Have I really included picture? Not quite on the branches. Okay, I have there is a slide where I have put, okay. Here's another one where I've managed to use a photograph as the central image. Okay, and there should be another one where I've also used pictures on the branches. Let me look for that. Here we go. Okay, so I want to talk about different organizations. So that's how I've managed to include pictures. Yeah. Hand-drawn. Well, I suppose you can save it as a JPEG or something, and then just insert it. One of the limitations I found is you can't. Let's say I want to draw a free-form arrow. The softwares do allow me to put in arrows, but I can't like this. You can see the arrows here, but they're not quite free-form. And iMindMap also doesn't allow free-form drawing very well, just within that context. I've seen professional mind mapping instructors give presentations. They use a tablet PC. With tablet PC, you can just draw all over your PowerPoint presentation. That's what they do. What I've done with the whiteboard here, they do with their tablet PC during a presentation. Do
you tag your mind maps?
Do I? Sorry? Tag my mind maps. No, I've never tried that. Do you think that?
Because for recall purposes, you have to start somewhere. Your mind maps will grow.
Yeah, I do. How would I search the tags? What? Yeah. I've not come across a search feature. Does MindDomo have a search feature? Any CIT person here? Do you know if MindDomo? Okay, there's a find function. There's a find function. So let me try something like, okay, fine. There you go. There is a find function in MindDomo.
So in your case, you need to use iMindMap first, export it to PowerPoint, and do your lectures in PowerPoint.
That's right, yeah.
Why don't you use the software and teach?
You can do that too, but then I can't put in all those other kinds of slides. Yeah, yeah.
Why don't you just directly use, for example, in case of MindDomo, classroom presentation, because it allows you to zoom in and zoom out.
Right.
You could do directly.
Right, yeah. I guess from here, perhaps, yeah, perhaps.
You have a
Yeah.
overview. That's the advantage of MindDomo because it's a flash-based.
Yeah.
You can use the hand scroll to go to any part of your mind map and just zoom into that portion instead of going slide by slide.
Right, yeah.
I was thinking for hardcore mind map,
Yeah.
without the true organic lines,
Yeah.
it seems a bit not like a mind map, it looks like flow chart.
That's why I personally don't like the look of the MindDomo mind maps. I will only use it if I wanted to use the online sharing function. Most of the time I'll use iMindMap, but actually I prefer hand mind mapping.
That's a good
Yeah.
feedback. Perhaps we can give this feedback to the vendor and perhaps we can implement something for the next version.
Right. Most mind mapping softwares out there look like MindDomo. They're iMindMaps is the only one I've come across, and itself claims to be the only one that has that hand-drawn look, because iMindMap is produced by Tony Buzan's company. You probably know that Tony Buzan is the one who's copyrighted mind mapping. And so it follows his principles. Yeah. Yes? With the... right. That's true. Yeah. I've never tried a smart board, actually. Yeah. Add some notes. Yeah, I think you can add, yes, you can add notes in this as well, yeah. That's the problem. I don't think it won't preserve the notes. And when you export this, it often comes up really small. When you have a huge mind map like this, you can't use export to PDF. It will just be too small to see. Yeah. So those are some of the limitations.
You need those AutoCAD printers.
Yeah, for all my 300 students, I'm sure. Yeah, right. Yes. Best practices for high hand mind mapping or online mind mapping? Just in general, in digital. I think you need to be familiar with mind mapping first. Learn to use it and make it your own. I know that a lot of people, as many of you here have heard of mind mapping, but you may not be active users. And I think many students in Singapore schools are taught mind mapping in school, but again, they don't use it actively. So if you're not really comfortable with using mind mapping, and suddenly you think, I want to use it online, it's not going to be that comfortable. If you're already familiar with how you work and drawing hierarchical branches, then I think you'll find it much easier to do it online. Yeah. Yes. Maximum branch. I don't know. I've never hit that limit. And also because, as I said, I actually don't use the online version all that much. I don't use it for my own note-taking. For my own note-taking, I prefer to do them by hand. And then I just, squeeze it around the paper, and sometimes, and I kind of like doing that. You have a lot more flexibility to use use whatever space you can on a piece of paper, and that's what gives it that organic look, or some might even say artistic look. I used to take my maps on A3 paper. I started when I was an undergraduate and reading history books. Instead of taking notes in linear form, I would actually mind map the entire book on an A3 paper. Yeah, so you can just keep drawing branches and branches and branches. Yeah. Yes.
How do you avoid making it too wordy?
That's where the thinking comes in. How can you come up with a keyword that encapsulates the idea? And sometimes when you're listening to a lecture, I can't think of the word on the spot, and then I just end up writing a whole chunk of words. I might end up writing a whole sentence from the lecturer. But really, if you have the time or you can think fast enough, can you think of a keyword that encapsulates the idea? And that's why taking notes when listening to a lecture is hard, because the lecturer may not be following a very very clear structure, or may not phrase it may not give you that keyword. They may be, doing a lot of explanation or something, and then you have to think of it. So that's the hard bit. Yeah.
But does that become a bottleneck in communicating, because the keyword which you have got might not be comprehended in the same way by the students?
Well, I guess then you have to. That's true. That's true. Maybe you have to draw more sub-branches breaking down that keyword into what you mean, if you feel that that's important to explain. Yeah. Or maybe like in my PowerPoint presentation, you can see that apart from the mind map, there's a lot of other textual information going on as well. And then, of course, I'm there to explain what I mean by all of it. So if you just distribute the mind map on its own, you're right, I don't know whether it's really communicating, but it works great as a tool for them to revise what they've learned. Yeah, and I do know that my students find the tutorial mind maps extremely helpful. Some of them will take out their cameras and take a photograph of it before they leave the classroom. But usually I find that because I draw the mind map as the class is going on, they're also taking their notes in mind map form. So I may not even have to teach them how to mind map. It's pretty obvious when I'm drawing it how a mind map works. I don't have to tell you start from the center, go outwards. And actually when you draw the branches, the software tends to do them like this. 1, 2, and then this would be 3, and this would be 4. But my preferred style, which is I've taken from Tony Buzan, is to go in a radial pattern. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So when it comes down to this part, people find it confusing because I'm kind of going against the flow where you might expect it to go like that. And also, this is the direction of the branches here. So if you don't know that I'm following this pattern, you might start reading outwards in, perhaps. But I suppose if you start with thick branches going to thin, again, it becomes obvious which is the key idea, which are the sub-ideas. But because I'm drawing it live in class, students also know which is the flow of words. Sorry. Yeah. I think that's all for time we have today. Thank you very much for your questions and also your suggestions, and I've really benefited from it. Thank you very much. Okay.